My name is Charlotte Rivers, and for most of my life I believed that if you worked hard, stayed loyal, and kept your head down, good things would come your way. For 9 years I did exactly that. I joined Preston and Blake Consultancy fresh out of university, a bright-eyed graduate with a dream of making my mark in corporate strategy. While my peers hopped between jobs every 2 years, chasing salaries and titles, I stayed. I believed in building roots. I believed in patience. I started as a junior analyst working under a manager who barely remembered my name. I made PowerPoints that nobody saw, ran reports that got buried under flashier pitches, and stayed late without anyone asking me to. I was invisible until I wasn't. In my 5th year, something shifted. We landed a huge logistics client, one that would shape the company's revenue for the next decade. My strategy helped close the deal, and suddenly, people started noticing. Promotions followed, slowly. First to senior analyst, then associate consultant, then team lead. By my 9th year, I was being whispered about as the next associate director. And when it finally happened, when HR called me into that small glass meeting room and handed me the letter, I nearly cried. "I've earned this," I whispered to myself. "Congratulations, Charlotte," said Lauren from HR, smiling. "You deserve it." I wanted to tell someone immediately. My boyfriend Alex was at work. My best friend Ella was in Portugal on a yoga retreat, and my parents, well, they never really understood what I did. But there was someone else, someone whose approval meant more than I cared to admit. My boss, Nathan Hart. Nathan had been director of our division for 4 years. Polished, brilliant, respected. He carried himself like he'd stepped out of a GQ feature. Tailored suits, crisp voice, a stare that made interns flinch and managers sit straighter. He was also the hardest person to read. One moment he was praising your work in a meeting, the next he was ignoring your emails for days. He had a mind like a scalpel, sharp, precise, and dangerous when turned on you. I'd spent the last 3 years trying to earn his approval. So when Lauren told me the news, I walked straight to his office. I knocked, heart pounding. "Come in." He looked up from his laptop, expression unreadable. "Hi, Nathan. I got the letter. I wanted to thank you for the recommendation." There was a pause. Then he nodded. "Well done." Just that. No smile, no handshake, no warmth. I laughed awkwardly. "I hope to make the most of it." "I'm sure you will," he said flatly. And just like that, I was dismissed. The promotion party was planned for the following Friday. Ella had returned from Portugal, buzzing with stories about sunrises and smoothies. Alex took me out for dinner midweek and toasted with champagne. But I couldn't shake Nathan's cold reaction. "Maybe he's just jealous," Ella said when I told her. "Or maybe he's just being a moody old sod." "He's not old," I murmured. She raised an eyebrow. "Oh God, you like him?" I turned red. "Don't be ridiculous." But it wasn't ridiculous. I did admire him, more than I wanted to admit. Still, this night wasn't about him. It was about me. The party was held at a rooftop bar in Shoreditch. Modern, slightly pretentious, the kind of place that served cocktails with dehydrated pineapple slices and $9 fries in tiny silver baskets. Most of the team showed up. Marketing, research, HR, even the partners. Ella came as my +1, and Alex was due to join later. The music was perfect. The drinks flowed, and for once, everyone seemed genuinely happy for me. Until the toast. "Can we get everyone's attention?" said Sarah from operations, clinking her glass. "We'd love to hear a few words from our newest associate director." Cheers erupted. People turned towards me. I stood, took the mic, and cleared my throat. "I'm terrible at speeches," I began, smiling, "but if you'd told me 9 years ago that I'd still be here, let alone in this role, I'd have laughed or cried, probably both." Laughter. I've worked with some of the most brilliant minds in this room, and to be honest, I owe a great deal of where I am today to the people who guided me, challenged me, and pushed me to do better. More cheers. Glasses raised. Ella gave me a thumbs up. I'm proud of what we've built, and I'm even more excited about what comes next. So, thank you. Truly. Applause. I sat down, cheeks warm, adrenaline still buzzing. Then Nathan stood. Everyone hushed. If I was the star of the night, he was the producer in the shadows, the one everyone waited to hear from. I wasn't planning to speak, he said, adjusting his cufflinks, but since we're celebrating Charlotte's success, I suppose I should say something. My heart fluttered. I looked up at him, hopeful. Charlotte is meticulous, he began. Organized, obsessive with detail, and yes, she's worked hard. Polite nods, a few murmurs of agreement. But promotion isn't just about hard work, he continued. It's about judgment, about knowing when to speak up and when to stay silent, about understanding how your actions reflect on the people around you. I frowned. He looked at me then, directly, coldly. And sometimes we promote people not because they're ready, but because it's easier than admitting we've invested in the wrong one. Silence. You could have heard the clink of a dropped ice cube. I stared at him, stunned. The words barely registered. People shifted in their seats. Someone coughed. Ella's eyes were wide with disbelief. Alex had just arrived. He stood frozen near the bar, unsure of what he'd walked into. Nathan smiled slightly, set his glass down, and walked away. Just like that. My promotion party was still going, but the energy had shifted. People whispered. Some tried to distract with forced laughs. Others just avoided my eyes. Ella rushed over. What the actual hell was that? I don't know, I whispered. Alex approached, jaw clenched. Want to leave? I nodded. We left the party without saying goodbye. My moment of triumph had turned into something dark, confusing, and deeply humiliating. I barely spoke on the ride home. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying Nathan's words over and over. We've invested in the wrong one. What did he mean? What did I do? The next morning I arrived at the office early. Nathan wasn't in. By noon, people were acting normal. Too normal. The kind of normal that hides discomfort. I received emails congratulating me, meetings about upcoming projects, and even a cupcake from HR. But no one mentioned the party. I finally asked Lauren from HR if I could speak privately. We sat in her office, the blinds drawn. I need to understand, I said. About Nathan's speech. It felt personal. Lauren looked uncomfortable. Charlotte, it's complicated. Did I do something wrong? She hesitated. Not officially, but there's been talk. Talk? She lowered her voice. He's been saying you lack discretion, that you're overly ambitious, that you've taken credit for work that wasn't yours. My mouth fell open. That's not true. I believe you, but it's his word against yours, and he's a director. I stood up. I need to fix this. Lauren nodded. Just be careful. He plays a long game. That evening, I went home and opened a folder I hadn't touched in months, a backup archive of old emails and drafts. I started searching through my old reports, pitch decks, strategy notes, looking for something, anything, that might show how my work evolved. I found timestamps, revision trails, and dozens of files with my initials that had made it into final presentations. I started building a case, not for court, but for the truth. And then I found something. An old shared drive folder, one I hadn't looked at in over a year. Inside it was a draft proposal for a major account, the Vailtech project. I had worked on it tirelessly for weeks before passing it to Nathan for review. But the version in the folder wasn't mine. It was stripped of my name. All metadata erased. The strategy and wording were still mine, but the file had been resaved, submitted under Nathan's initials. I felt the chill rise up my spine. He hadn't just shamed me, he'd stolen from me. And now I was going to find out why. They say a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth even gets its shoes on. But what they never tell you is how heavy that truth feels when you finally put it on. I sat alone in my living room, the glow of my laptop casting eerie shadows across the room. The file I'd found on the shared drive, the strategy deck for Vailtech, still blinked at me like a loaded gun. The plan was mine. The wording, the market analysis, even the design format. I recognized every detail. But the metadata was wiped clean. The author had been replaced, Nathan's initials. He didn't just humiliate me. He built his entire credibility in the firm off a lie. My hands trembled on the keyboard, not from fear but rage. All these years I'd worked quietly behind the scenes, putting in the hours, never chasing the spotlight. And the one time my work had a real shot at visibility, he'd snatched it, scrubbed my name clean, and passed it off as his own. I wasn't just hurt, I was done being polite about it. I printed everything, screenshots, emails, even my original draft, which still had the last modified by data attached to my company login. I put it all in a slim black folder and slid it into my work bag. The next morning I walked into the office earlier than usual. The air was still, the way it always is before the chaos begins. I went straight to the glass conference room and waited. I didn't need coffee. I was already burning. At 8:52, Nathan arrived. He glanced at me through the glass and gave the barest nod before walking toward his office. I stood, folder in hand, and followed him in. He didn't even turn around when I entered. "I'm in the middle of reviewing Q2 reports, Charlotte," he said, eyes on his screen. "Email me if you need something." I placed the folder on his desk and sat. He looked at it, then at me. "What is this?" I folded my hands. "Proof." He opened the folder, his eyes scanning the first few pages. His face gave nothing away, but his left hand twitched slightly, the only sign that he understood what I'd brought him. "This is quite an accusation." "No," I said. "It's a fact." He closed the folder calmly. "Let's say hypothetically that I did reuse your work. It was a team project. We all contributed. That version never saw the team. It went from my computer to yours. The final submission was made under your initials. You erased me. I'm your boss," he said flatly. "You work under me. I consolidate reports all the time. You stole it. Do you really want to go down this path, Charlotte?" I looked him in the eye. "Yes." There was a long pause. He leaned back, clasped his hands together. "You don't understand how things work at this level. This isn't just about documents. It's about relationships, influence. You think being right is all that matters?" "No," I said quietly, "but being honest does." He smirked. "You're emotional." I stood. "And you're afraid." He said nothing as I walked out. I went straight to Lauren from HR and filed a formal grievance. Her eyes widened when she saw the evidence. "This is serious," she said. "I know." He could face dismissal. He should. She nodded. "We'll need to escalate this and bring in legal." I braced myself for the fallout. Preston and Blake wasn't the kind of company that liked public messes. They valued silence, cleanliness, but I didn't care anymore. I wasn't going to let someone else narrate my story. By the end of the week, word had spread. Whispers in corridors, paused conversations as I entered rooms. Some looked at me with admiration, others with suspicion, a few with pity. Nathan, for his part, acted as if nothing had changed. He still hosted morning meetings, still dropped passive-aggressive comments in emails, still walked around like he owned the air, until the day they put him on suspension. He didn't come in that morning. His calendar was blank, and when I passed his office, the blinds were drawn and the lights off. It felt surreal. Later that afternoon, I was called into a meeting with a partner, Clive Bennett. Silver hair, sharp mind, the kind of man who measured words before letting them loose. He gestured for me to sit. "Charlotte," he said, "what you did took courage." I nodded. "You've given us a lot to consider. I won't comment on Nathan's status while the investigation is ongoing, but I will say this: we take integrity very seriously." "Thank you," I said. "That's all I wanted." He tilted his head. "No, I don't think it is." I blinked. "I think you wanted something more than fairness. I think you wanted recognition, and you deserve it." I didn't know what to say. He leaned forward. "You've handled this with class, but I also heard what happened at your party. That shouldn't have happened. We're deeply sorry for that." I nodded again. I wasn't ready to forgive yet, but it helped. A week later, I got an unexpected call from Nathan. The number flashed on my screen while I was making tea. I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before picking up. "Hello?" A pause. Then, "You won." I said nothing. "I resigned this morning." Still nothing. "I'm not calling to apologize. I don't think you'd believe me." "You're right." He exhaled. "But I wanted to say one thing. I did what I did because I knew you were going places, and that terrified me." I waited. "You reminded me of who I used to be," he said. "Before the politics, before the compromises, you were too clean, too good, and I hated that." I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel satisfaction either. Just a quiet ending. "I hope you figure out who you want to be next," I said. He hung up. Weeks passed. HR cleared the case. I was allowed to speak about it now, if I chose to. But I didn't, because something better happened. Clive offered me Nathan's role on a 6-month trial basis. Director of strategy, I said yes. On my first day in the new office, I walked in early. The desk was still bare. The room still smelled like stale aftershave and anxiety. I opened the blinds, let the sunlight pour in, and placed a single item on the shelf. The black folder. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. That truth matters. That silence is never neutral. And that sometimes standing up for yourself doesn't just change your life, it changes the shape of everything around you. Ella surprised me with flowers. Alex took me out for dinner again, this time without the awkward tension. And the next company-wide event? I made the toast. "To resilience," I said, lifting my glass. And this time, no one shamed me, because this time I knew exactly who I was. Thank you for listening to The Story Voice. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And if you've got a story you think the world needs to hear, drop it in the comments. I might just tell it next. Until then, keep listening and keep feeling.